February 14th, 2025. Moscow, 6:47 a.m. Alexei Radchenko is 19 years old. Computer science student. His door gets kicked in. 4 FSB officers. Guns out. Warrant signed. They're not here because he posted something online. Not because he organized a protest. They're here because 3 days ago, at 11:34 p.m., he typed 8 words into a search engine. How to set up VPN for academic research. He never downloaded anything. Never clicked a link. Never broke a law. He searched. That search query? Exhibit A in a criminal case. 5 years. Penal colony. This isn't a leak. This isn't a rumor. This is Russian federal policy. Right now. And the system that caught him? It's scanning 140 million people. Russia deployed something most of the world doesn't know exists yet. An AI surveillance system. Monitoring every single search query. Every citizen. Real time. They call it the Digital Prophylaxis Protocol. It doesn't wait for you to break the law. It predicts that you might. Here's the thing. It's not scanning for bomb-making instructions. Not terror manifestos. It's scanning for curiosity. In 2025, the Russian government made a calculation. The biggest threat to power isn't violence. It's information. So they criminalized looking for it. Every internet service provider in Russia is now required by law to route user data through a centralized system. SORM 3. It's existed since 2014. But in January 2025, they upgraded it. The new version uses machine learning to analyze not just what you search, but how you search. Patterns, hesitations, deleted queries, synonyms. Watch this. You search news. Delete it. Search independent media. Delete that. Search VPN. The system flags you. Not because you did anything illegal. Because you thought about doing something illegal. The AI assigns you a risk score. Low, medium, high, critical. At high, you're on a watch list. Your internet gets throttled. Your searches? Manually reviewed by FSB officers. At critical, police show up. This is what happened to Alexei Radchenko. He wasn't a dissident. Wasn't political. He was studying network security. He needed a VPN for a university assignment on encrypted communications. He searched how to set up VPN for academic research. 72 hours later, arrested. Article 282.3. Preparation for extremist activity. The evidence. His search history. That's it. December 2024. The Russian Duma passed what they officially call the Digital Sovereignty and Counter-Extremism Act. It redefined extremism. Under the old law, extremism meant inciting violence. Inciting hatred. Under the new law, extremism includes deliberate attempts to access prohibited foreign information resources. The word deliberate is key here. The law doesn't require you to actually access anything. The attempt is enough. How do they prove intent? Your searches. Now, VPNs aren't technically illegal in Russia, but all VPN providers operating in the country must register with Roskomnadzor. That's the federal censorship agency, and they must provide backdoor access to user traffic. The registered VPNs? They don't work. They're honeypots. The unregistered ones? Blocked. Over 400 VPN domains blacklisted since January. So if you search for a VPN, the state assumes you're trying to circumvent censorship. And circumventing censorship is now evidence of extremist intent. The penalties? Staggering. First offense, 500,000 rubles. Roughly $5,000. Plus probation. Second offense, 2 to 5 years in prison. If you're caught using a VPN to access content the government deems destabilizing, Novaya Gazeta, Meduza, you face up to 8 years. But here's the part that makes this different from every other authoritarian crackdown in history. You don't have to succeed. You don't even have to try very hard. You just have to search. The law was sold to the public as a counterterrorism measure. State media ran stories. Foreign agents radicalizing youth online. But the data tells a different story. Leaked FSB documents published by Proact Media in March 2025. 91% of people arrested under the new extremism laws are not activists. They're students, freelancers, teachers, small business owners, people who wanted to access LinkedIn for job applications, people who wanted to watch a YouTube video that was geo-blocked, people who were tired of state television and wanted to read something else. Anything else. One woman, 34 years old, accountant in St. Petersburg, fined 300,000 rubles for searching how to access banned websites. She wasn't searching for opposition newspapers. She was trying to access her company's European servers. For work. Didn't matter. The system flagged her. A human reviewed it. A judge upheld it. This is the efficiency of automated repression. It doesn't require malice. It just requires obedience. So how does Russia actually enforce this? First, there's SORM 3, the surveillance backbone. But that's just data collection. The analysis happens at a facility outside Moscow. Center 18, joint operation between the FSB and the Ministry of Digital Development. This is where the AI lives. It's not one algorithm. It's a suite of them. Natural language processing to detect subversive keywords. Behavioral modeling to identify patterns. Predictive analytics to assign risk scores. And it's fast. The average time between a flagged search and human review? 11 minutes. If the review confirms the flag, a detention order can be issued within an hour. Russia has also installed deep packet inspection hardware at every major internet exchange point. This tech, provided by a state contractor called Monitoring Center, allows the government to see inside encrypted traffic, not break the encryption. See around it. Metadata. Timing. Endpoints. They know you connected to a server in Germany at 3 a.m. They know the connection lasted 14 minutes. They know you've done it before. That's enough. Then there's the social layer. Russia has incentivized informants. If you report someone for digital extremism and they're convicted, you receive a payout. The amount varies. Whistleblowers have received up to 200,000 rubles. Neighbors, co-workers, family members. The state doesn't need to watch everyone. It just needs everyone to believe they're being watched. By April 2025, Russian search data had changed. Queries for VPN dropped 87%. Queries for free press dropped 72%. Queries for anything related to the war in Ukraine? Down 94%. Not because people stopped caring. Because they stopped searching. This is the goal. The arrests are not the point. The fear is the point. You start to self-censor. Not just what you say, what you think, what you wonder, what you type and delete. Psychologists call this preemptive compliance. You obey rules that haven't even been enforced yet, just in case. And it spreads. Parents tell their kids not to ask questions at school. Teachers avoid certain topics. Librarians remove books no one has banned yet. Because the law is vague enough that anything could be extremism. And vague laws are the most powerful kind. They don't need to be enforced equally. They just need to be enforced unpredictably. One person gets 5 years for searching VPN. Another person does the same thing. Nothing happens. You never know which one you'll be. So you stop searching. Alexei Radchenko's trial lasted 4 days. The prosecution presented his search history, screenshots of the queries, testimony from an FSB cybersecurity expert who explained that the pattern of searches indicated premeditation to access foreign intelligence resources. Radchenko's lawyer argued that he was a student, completing a homework assignment. The university confirmed this. His professor submitted a written statement. Didn't matter. The judge ruled that the defendant's technical knowledge made his intent more dangerous, not less. 5 years. His mother appealed. The appeals court upheld the sentence. She tried to speak to journalists. 3 were arrested for spreading false information about the judiciary. She gave up. This is the other part of the system. The trials are not designed to determine guilt. They're designed to create examples. The state doesn't care if Alexei is actually a threat. They care that his story makes you think twice before typing VPN into a search bar. And it works. So who wins in this system? Obviously, the state. This gives the Kremlin total informational control without the cost of mass arrests. But there's another winner. The companies. Yandex, Russia's largest search engine. User engagement up 19% since the law took effect. Why? People are afraid to use Google. State-approved news sites? Traffic tripled. Not because the content improved, because everything else is inaccessible or dangerous to access. Russian telecom companies are selling patriotic internet packages. They promise safe, compliant browsing. There's profit in fear. And the global tech companies that stayed in Russia, the ones that complied, that handed over data, that built the infrastructure the state now uses, they're profiting too. This didn't happen by accident. It was designed, legislated, funded, built. And now it's operational. Here's what should worry you. Even if you don't live in Russia, this system is not uniquely Russian. The technology, AI-driven search monitoring, predictive risk scoring, deep packet inspection. It's all commercially available. China has a version. Iran is building one. Belarus imported Russia's model in February. And the legal framework? The idea that intent can be criminal. That curiosity is evidence. That's spreading too. March 2025. A Kazakhstani court cited Russian case law when sentencing a journalist for research into banned topics. The journalist had searched for information about protests. The precedent is set. Authoritarian governments are watching and learning, because this is the future of censorship. Not blocking websites, not arresting dissidents, making people afraid to wonder. Back in Moscow, Alexei Radchenko is in a prison colony, 800 kilometers east of the city. He's not allowed internet access, not allowed to receive books from outside. His mother visits once a month. She says he's different now, quieter. He doesn't ask questions anymore. And that's the real victory for the state. Not the sentence, the silence. Because once you criminalize curiosity, you don't just control what people know. You control what they want to know. You control the questions they ask. And eventually, you control whether they ask questions at all. This is how information dies. Not in a dramatic shutdown. Not in an obvious purge. It dies in the space between a thought and a search bar. In the moment you decide it's not worth the risk. In the second you stop wondering. Think about what this means. In Russia right now, there are millions of people who have questions. Questions about their government, about the war, about the world beyond their borders. And they're not asking them. Not because they don't care. Because asking could destroy their lives. That's a level of control most dictatorships throughout history could only dream of. Stalin needed informants on every block. The Stasi needed files on millions of citizens. Putin needs an algorithm. And the terrifying efficiency of it is that it scales. You don't need more officers, more prisons, more trials. You just need everyone to know that the system is watching and that it's unpredictable. That's the key. If everyone who searched VPN got arrested, people would find workarounds. But if it's random, if your neighbor searches and nothing happens, but you search and armed men show up at your door, that's when fear becomes paralysis. That's when self-censorship becomes survival. Let's talk about the actual AI for a moment. Because this isn't science fiction. This is production-level technology. The system analyzes search queries using natural language processing. It can detect intent even when you use euphemisms. Even when you're careful. If you search privacy tools instead of VPN, flagged. If you search access foreign news instead of specific outlet names, flagged. If you search internet freedom, flagged. The machine learning model has been trained on millions of search patterns. It knows what people search for before they try to access banned content. It knows the progression. First you search something vague, then something more specific. Then you look for the tool that will help you access it. The AI catches you at step 1, before you've done anything, before you've even decided to do anything. And here's what makes it truly insidious. The system learns. Every arrest feeds back into the model. Every person who gets flagged and then interrogated provides more data. What were they really trying to do? What else were they interested in? Who else searches similar things? The net gets tighter. The predictions get better. The fear gets deeper. There's a young woman in Ekaterinburg, 23 years old, works in marketing. She told a journalist, anonymously, through an encrypted channel, that she doesn't search for anything anymore. Not anything, like political content. Anything. If she wants to know something, she asks a friend in person. If she can't ask a friend, she doesn't find out. She said, I used to love learning. I'd spend hours just following links, discovering new things. Now I'm afraid to be curious. That's not an isolated story. That's the new normal. A generation growing up where the internet isn't a tool for discovery. It's a minefield, and they're learning to tiptoe through it, or avoid it entirely. Teachers in Moscow have reported that students don't ask questions in class anymore. Not because they're not interested, because they're afraid their questions will be reported. Librarians say people don't check out books on certain topics. History, politics, philosophy. Too risky. What if someone reports what you're reading? What if your borrowing history becomes evidence? This is intellectual death. Slow, quiet, thorough. Now let's zoom out. Because Russia isn't doing this in isolation. They're doing it in conversation with other authoritarian states. China's Great Firewall has been around for years. But even China didn't criminalize search queries. They blocked. They censored. They removed. But they didn't arrest people for curiosity. Russia just showed them how. And in February 2025, Chinese state media published an article praising Russia's innovative approach to digital sovereignty. 2 weeks later, Belarus announced they were implementing an identical system. Kazakhstan is in talks to purchase the technology. Iran has sent a delegation to Moscow to study the implementation. The model is spreading. And here's the thing that should terrify everyone. The technology isn't Russian. The deep packet inspection hardware, made by a company with offices in 12 countries. The AI algorithms, built on open-source machine learning frameworks. The surveillance infrastructure, developed by international contractors. This can be deployed anywhere. The only thing stopping it is political will. And in authoritarian states, that's not a barrier. It's an accelerant. In the West, there's a dangerous assumption that this could never happen here, that democracies have safeguards, that the courts would stop it, that the people would rise up. Maybe. But let's trace how this happened in Russia. It didn't start with arrests for search queries. It started with counterterrorism legislation. Reasonable. Necessary. Then it expanded to extremism. Still reasonable. Who's pro-extremism? Then extremism got redefined to include destabilizing foreign influence. Okay, still maybe? Then destabilizing foreign influence became accessing unauthorized information. Then accessing became attempting to access. Then attempting to access became showing interest in accessing. Each step was justified. Each step had legal backing. Each step moved the line just a little bit further. And now, searching for a VPN is a crime. The mechanism isn't unique to Russia. The slide from protecting citizens to controlling information to criminalizing curiosity. That's a path any government could walk. All it takes is fear, a crisis, real or manufactured, and the willingness to trade freedom for security. Every time, just a little bit more. We need to talk about the companies, because none of this works without them. Russian telecom companies didn't resist. They complied. They installed the surveillance hardware. They routed the traffic. They handed over the data. And they're profiting. Yandex didn't push back. They integrated the monitoring systems into their search engine. They flagged the queries. They provided the evidence. And their stock went up. International companies that stayed in Russia made a choice. Some left. Many stayed. The ones that stayed built the infrastructure the state is now using to imprison people for search queries. Did they know? Of course they knew. Did they care? The market suggests no. There's a broader lesson here. Technology companies will tell you they're neutral, that they just provide tools, that they can't control how governments use them. That's a lie. Every company that provides surveillance technology, that builds AI monitoring systems, that creates infrastructure for tracking and prediction, they know how it will be used. They know authoritarian governments will use it for repression, and they sell it anyway, because the profit margin is too good. Because if we don't, someone else will. Because they can pretend they're just engineers, just building tools, just doing business. But there's no neutrality in surveillance technology. It's built to watch, to track, to predict, to control. And selling it to dictatorships isn't neutral. It's complicity. So is there any resistance? Yes, but it's quieter than you'd expect. In Russia, open resistance is suicide. So people adapt. Some use Tor, the onion router. Harder to block, harder to track. But using Tor is also a red flag. The system knows you're using Tor. It doesn't know what you're accessing, but it knows you're hiding something. And hiding something is evidence of guilt. Some people use dead drops. USB drives with information passed hand to hand. Old school, pre-internet. It works, but it doesn't scale. Some people simply memorize what they want to know. They have friends outside Russia send them information verbally over phone calls. No searches, no digital footprint, just memory. The resistance isn't organized. It can't be. Organization requires communication. Communication leaves traces. Traces become evidence. So resistance is individual, quiet, and fragile. One arrest, one interrogation, one person breaking, and the network collapses. This is the genius of the system. It doesn't just stop organization. It stops the possibility of organization. It makes trust impossible, because anyone could be an informant. Anyone could report you. Even people who care about you might turn you in. Not out of malice, out of fear for themselves. Russia has figured out something most governments are still trying to learn. You don't need to catch everyone. You just need to scare everyone. And in a world where your thoughts leave digital fingerprints, where algorithms predict your intentions before you act on them, where a search query can be evidence of a crime, the safest thing to do is stop thinking dangerous thoughts altogether. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's the law. And it's already working. If this terrifies you, good. It should. Share this video. Not because it'll change what's happening in Russia. It won't. But because this playbook is being copied. Right now. And the only defense against invisible censorship is making it visible. Subscribe if you want more stories the algorithm doesn't want you to see. The truth is still out there. For now. But people like Alexei are paying the price for looking for it. And every day, fewer people are willing to pay that price. That's how it ends. Not with a bang. With silence.